Hey, what's up, nerdies? Welcome to Something to Marvel About, a podcast where we discuss and dissect Marvel releases. My name's English Dave, and joining me in my bathtub full of nostalgia bubbles is my co host, Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
Hello, 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 excellent fans.
We are here to talk about the first two episodes of the recently released X-Men 97, currently airing on Disney Plus. Before we get into the full spoiler conversation, Andrew, quick thoughts, spoiler free, go.
Amazing. The nostalgia in me was pleased. Every single itch was scratched. If I'm honest, I don't know if I could be happier at this point.
I loved it. I dove straight into that nostalgia
Mm,
bathtub and it felt good. I thought it would
good.
feel nice, but I didn't realize it would feel
It's
good.
just
Like,
so good.
dare say, they've upped it and it's much better than the original. And I think they did a good job that if you haven't seen the original, you can watch
Yeah,
this and
sure.
enjoy it. And then you probably feel like, damn, I should go back and watch the original. So check it out if you're on the fence. Check it out if you like animation. It's just a great show and keep coming back to this podcast. All right, now that's out of the way. Andrew, we are going to talk about this show. We're going to do it episode by episode, but we won't spend too long talking about it. But I just think the way it was structured, we need to talk about it. But first of all, were you a fan of the original series?
Hundred
Which is a
percent
stupid question.
yes. It is right. 100% yes. And I just rewatched that last week, and it was. I think that even made me like this new one even more because honestly, I love the original series, but I have a lot of issues also. I don't
Mm.
know. That might be a separate podcast, but there were things here that they fixed, even in just like portrayal of characters and skill utilization. Right. That was my issue with some of the original fights in the original X-Men. They just felt like we're going just like and then you get slapped out of the out of the screen, right? And I like that they're very much now showing them with like advanced usage of powers, right? And the storyline is as deep as that's what we all love about X Men. If you're a real fan, right? The storyline is always deeper than you think every single time.
Yeah, no, and I think I agree. I think I was a huge fan of the original, and I also recently revisited it, and it's very much of its time in many
Yeah,
ways. And also, this was also it was groundbreaking. It was doing groundbreaking things for animation of its time, and I think
yeah,
part of that
backhead.
led to the fact it didn't have a budget. So they couldn't
All
go
right,
crazy with the animation. They could go
of
as far as
course.
they could, but they were still limited because of the budget. And like you said,
Good.
this time around, they have that Disney money backing and they really
Yep.
utilize it.
Yep.
They
It,
really
it shows.
utilize it. Even things like the theme song, it's updated. It sounds dope. Like there's an extra guitar riffs in there. It sounds
Yes, sir.
clearer and things like that. Even the opening
Okay.
visual montage, they've
Yes,
updated
sir.
it. It looks so
Yeah.
much cleaner. It's great to see it in widescreen as opposed to the old school box visual. I think they did a great job.
And then
Entering this episode, it's set I think about a year from the previous season. Professor X is dead, or so they think. There's more to it. Some
that
people think he's dead. And the X-Men are without their leader. And this episode kind of catches us up in an interesting way, in the terms of the team dynamics. Cyclops is now wondering what they should do next. He feels that the other X-Men aren't really being X-Men; they're kind of just being a bit lax, and he kind of wants to keep
yeah.
the mission going. What do you think of the team dynamic in this first episode?
I thought it was great how you're right. They right off the bat they tell us Professor X is dead, so like everybody watching, just like get ready, right? So I think just in that moment, obviously, if you kind of were a fan, you think, okay, Cyclops, sorry, is currently the leader, right? Obviously, teacher's pet and all. And I'll be honest, I wasn't always the biggest Cyclops fan. Or some people might not like to hear that, but even these first two episodes, I'm now a bigger Cyclops fan than I used to be because I think they did a good way of showing him taking on that responsibility, but still being like the quote unquote Boy Scout that he is, right? Like there's a lot that he does where it's like, yeah, he's now the father of this school of random orphan mutant kids that Xavier wrangled up over the years, and he has this responsibility. And I think he's doing as good a job as he can, especially with his animosity with people like Wolverine who are never going to want to listen to him and things. So just I think one of the reasons I've always loved the X Men I was saying to my wife is that I've always felt like, Avengers and Co feel like, professional superheroes, whereas the X-Men and Co just feel like humans with powers who have to figure out life and just like deal with crazy shit in their lives and just keep going, right? So they're always very relatable, and I felt like this Cyclops for me as a team leader is very relatable. Like I get where he's coming from. I understand the things he's dealing with, and I feel some of that, I guess, the weight of the leadership that he's on. But I like how he's wearing it like a belt. He doesn't seem like, so there's some versions of Cyclops where it's like, "Oh, woe is me," I'm like, "Oh my god." Whereas this version is very much like, "I don't care if you guys don't want to do this because this is what we're doing." Like, you know, get with the program, everybody. So I definitely am a fan of this current leader, Cyclops.
I usually save my favorite moments towards the end of the podcast, but you're already bringing up Cyclops, and I feel like Cyclops had a lot of my favorite moments in this first
The
episode
best.
specifically. And we'll go into it later, but it's the greatest superhero landing ever. That's all I will
Definitely,
say. And
100%.
I you what you said about Cyclops is interesting because you're not alone in that thinking, and there's a lot of people had feel some kind of way towards Cyclops, and I feel like this is not fact, but I feel like a huge part of that is how he was portrayed in the original series,
Yes. Yeah.
and for me, Cyclops is one of my favorite X-Men. I grew up reading a lot of X-Men comics, and I always loved Cyclops as a character, and I used to always get mad about
Yeah.
how they would treat him in that original series. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, Wolverine,
Yeah.
stop punking him. All right. And I
Yeah.
feel like this first episode specifically, it's almost like giving Cyclops his flowers.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about one of my favorite moments, the opening fight sequence. When
So good.
young Roberto gets kidnapped by the
Uh-huh.
FOH, the Friends of Humanity, and
Uh-huh.
the X-Men. It's like almost like a montage of them coming in, and Cyclops does something really cool that you spoke about in terms of showing new animation. Showing new techniques when he's using his
Yes.
optic
Yep.
blasters to zoom
Yeah.
around the room. I thought
It
that
was
was pretty
fantastic.
dope.
Fantastic.
That was so dope. I love that. And even
Actually,
just
actually amazing.
Storm's arrival when the bad guys start breathing the cold air, and he's like, oh
Uh-huh.
shit, Storm is
Exactly
coming.
that moment. Like I got chills when that guy got chills because I knew what was happening, and yeah, I feel like from that moment you could already tell that they're animating this very, very like,
Yes,
let's say lovingly.
yes. There's definitely an animation flex, in that. Again, they have the
Fam.
Disney backing this time around,
Yeah.
the money, and they're
Yeah.
really putting a lot of focus into this. Um, Also, again, one of the things that X-Men really does well, again, is its story. It's like you said earlier,
Yeah.
there's always a lot more depth to the story than we realize. Right? Part
Yeah.
of the storyline in this one is reminding us that uh, um, mutants have been going through a lot, and the death of Xavier kind of made some people feel sympathy for the mutants, but there's still a lot of people who are angry. And I think this did a good
Yeah.
job of highlighting the FOH, the Friends of Humanity, their perspective on things. Not necessarily that you
Yeah.
agree with them, but seeing their perspective. When
Mhm.
they talk to Trask, he's the creator of the original
Sentinels.
not Trask, when they speak to Gyrich, looking for
Yeah.
Trask as well. So both Gyrich and Trask, they were the senator who were funding the Sentinel
Sentinel
program
program.
and the scientist
Uh-huh.
who created it. While talking to them, they say something along. They both kind of say something along the lines of like they understand that mutants are the next evolution, but in that sense, you're also telling us that you want to get rid of us. There's a line
Yeah.
where I
Sure.
think Trask says, I wrote it down. Da, 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 da. Oh yeah, when Storm says to Gyrich in prison and says, "Oh, people like us now," and he says, "No, you're in vogue,
Yeah.
Storm, a fad. Look at my mutant friend." But under all that fashionable sympathy, normal people know the more room we make for your kind, the less we leave for ours. We might wear tolerance on our sleeves, but we know the naked truth. Tolerance is extinction. I was like, oof,
That's it.
oof.
Well, the dialogue was just top.
Those moments. And then there's another moment where Trask says, "You X-Men might use your gifts to protect everyone, but all you do is remind us that our days are numbered, that humanity itself is obsolete. You've no idea how it feels to be left behind by the future." Like, what? I understand. Again, I don't agree with their methods, but I understand their fear and pain. And then on top of that, you have characters who are mutants themselves, like Roberto, who's hiding the fact that he's a mutant. He even says,
Yeah.
I'm one of the good guys, not like the ones you see on TV."
Mhm.
So what do you think of that kind of overall narrative of reminding us that the state of human versus mutant relations?
I love it because again, I think that's one of the underpinning foundations of what the X Men is really about, right? Acceptance, accepting people's differences, how not segregating or ostracizing people because they look different or feel different, are different. And especially in this 2024 that we're in, I feel like these themes are even bolder these days. So I like how they addressed it in the story. I feel, I guess, for as much as I saw it, I think it was given enough weight and importance where it's not, again, like I said before, X-Men are not like the Avengers who like go around looking to help fight or like, save worlds. They kind of are just at first trying to just live in peace. Like that's literally half of their day is them trying to live in peace and somebody not letting them. So again, it's just always nice to see that. I guess almost like the first enemy of the X Men are the humans, but I'd like to call them enemies. But I'm also Team Magneto, so they're kind of enemies.
And that's the thing I like about that narrative, and which kind of made the X Men narrative as a whole way ahead of its time. It's both an analogy initially for the civil rights movement, and then it evolved to be an analogy for dealing with your sexuality.
Yeah,
Like,
guys, yep.
and you almost get hints of that with Roberto's character, right? For him, it's almost
Definitely.
like coming out that you're gay. He's like, I can't. My parents don't know, and things like that. So
Yeah,
like you said, it's always been an analogy for people who feel different and are treated
definitely.
differently. And what else I like about it is that this narrative and conversation, just because you're saying this is what you're supposed to do, doesn't mean it's going to work out so easily. The journey is a hard
Yeah.
journey. It's a tough journey. There's going to be pushbacks. There's going to be people like the Friends of Humanity who they themselves have their own fears and wants. And when you
Hmm.
break it down, you can understand where they're coming from. Again, it's their actions that make you upset at them, but you can understand where they're coming from, where they feel like, evolution is usually a thing that happens over millions of years. But with mutants, it's happening very quickly, instantly. So in decade or two, humans can be wiped out, and that's their fear. The more
Hmm.
space we give you, the less we have for ourselves. What does
Yeah.
that mean for humanity? And again, it's an interesting discussion on all angles. Like you said, there's times where Magneto's right, there's times where Magneto's wrong, there's times where Xavier's right, there's
Hmm.
times where Xavier's wrong.
Hmm.
We'll go into the next episode where Magneto just says, Xavier isn't always right. This first episode does a great job of just throwing us right back into the team themselves and what they're dealing with, and
Hmm.
just the atmosphere in the world towards
Yeah.
mutants. And I
Yeah.
like that because
Yeah.
we're not set 20 years later, 30 years later. It's a year later.
Uh-huh.
Things haven't changed that much. Favorite moments? I'll let you go first. We'll go back and forth. I have too many. So many.
Yeah, same. Well, yeah, you're right. Let's do back and forth. So I pick one, then you pick one. I'm no head or tail, no order.
And
Let's.
this is just episode one.
Yeah,
Favorite moments, episode one.
yes, just episode. I believe it was the end of episode one. Not believe. I know it was, and it's the teamwork. And it was when Gambit hopped on Wolverine, and Wolverine brought out the claws, and Gambit put the energy on the claws, and then he jumped, and then Morph turned into a blob, and then I was just like, yes, yes, yes. It was. I think that this is what we love about the X Men, right? There was a game I played back in the day which just had team. They have teamwork like that, but you could play as multiple X Men, and that's what we love. Just they're such a unique team, and when they're at their best and working together, they're quote unquote unbeatable. So that was an amazing moment for me.
No, I love that moment also because we'd seen the Wolverine and Gambit part of it in the
Mhm.
trailers. And my
Yeah.
my concern was, a lot of times when you see cool moments like that in trailers, we see most of them, like 99% of the moment, and the rest of
Mhm.
it we don't, it's just like blah, and they just gave us the
Yeah.
best part in the trailers.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
this, it was more extended than you realize, because then you have the moment where
Yeah.
Gambit throws his staff and explodes, and
Yes,
that
that's
launches
true.
Wolverine,
Yeah.
and things
Yep.
like that. I thought that's
I
great.
forgot that.
And
Oh.
going off of your teamwork, there's two moments of teamwork that I thought were great. There's one moment where Gambit and Bishop are back to back shooting out towards the Sentinels, and Sentinel shoots towards Gambit. Bishop flips Gambit around, takes the blast because his powers are to absorb energy, shoots it back out again. I was like, yeah. And then my favorite
Mhm.
moment is they're in the X-Jet. Cyclops is giving them some shit, and then Wolverine says, "Okay, Dad, I wonder what we'd do without you." And it instantly, Sentinel grabs, destroys the jet out of nowhere,
Yeah.
throws Cyclops out. And then you talk about teamwork. Instantly, you had that moment where Storm and Rogue look at each other, and all the people that can fly instantly know
Uh-huh.
what to do. They boom,
Yeah.
call to action, boom, boom, boom. And I'm thinking, who's going to save Cyclops? And then he's just like, haha, see you on the ground.
Yeah.
Best,
Uh-huh.
like that moment. I just thought that moment was written for by the writers to say, no, let's give Cyclops his flowers because Cyclops is
Uh-huh.
fucking amazing. And this is why
Uh-huh.
he's team leader to me, my X-Men. I was just done.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if there's a better rebranding of a character. Not even rebranding. I know he's a great character, but just in terms of shaking up, even the live action movies, right? You know, the live action movies also with the third one where Jane died and then Cyclops was a little like we didn't really like that movie that much. Wanted
No,
more Cyclops.
no.
So I think this definitely is 2024 is the year of Cyclops because I was hyped. Definitely the best superhero landing I've seen this
Right?
this this
Right?
decade.
Do you have another favorite moment?
There were a lot of great quotes from him as well. Even little things like I know Cyclops said, "Trust happens when actions meet words." But like the delivery of the words, like everything, it felt well timed. It felt thought out. Like honestly, I really love this episode, and I my best X-Men cartoon has been X-Men Evolution. If anybody saw that, which you better have,
Yes, that was a
amazing.
great show.
And it's giving me it's not the same thing, but it's giving me that same like happiness in my spirit. Just
Hmm.
everything they say has meaning. So yeah, those quotes they were also great. And I think just my final moment that I remember, yeah, sorry, just um, Storm. I'm a fan of Storm and her eccentricness and how she. To me, it
Best.
feels like she's like reading magic spells the way she talks to the
Yeah,
elements,
yeah.
right? So I've always
Hmm.
loved the eccentricness. Of, I will now command the wind, and so just from her first entry, like you said it already, but everything, her display of powers, her she also had a moment with Bishop, right too. I know because they had a little
Hmm.
tag team, so I guess honorary shout out for Bishop because they definitely made. I guess my summary is they made the use of their powers feel like unique to them. I'm like, this is why people hate the X-Men because you don't even know
Hmm.
how to fight them because they're
Hmm.
too dynamic, right? And I feel like
Hmm.
they did a great job just portraying that.
Even you speak about Storm when they're fighting the Sentinels and the Sentinels suddenly stop. Omega level threat detected. I was just
Yeah, it's
like,
like, well,
I was like, yeah, Omega
hey,
threat level.
hail
Like,
the
yes.
queen. Wow,
And that's the
hundred
thing. It
percent.
adds. I think it adds to her. You understand why people saw her as a god because it's just so epic. Just the way she
Yeah,
commands the weather, and then when she comes in, just like, oh shit,
yeah,
storm, and I thought it was good. I also like all the moments. This is something I liked from the original series, and something you rarely saw in cartoons, especially cartoons about superheroes. You just rarely saw them in just casual wear, doing casual things like cooking breakfast or playing a game
yeah,
of basketball.
yeah,
I love that that's come back, and I love that this has also given them an opportunity to really flex with the fashion because it's
yeah,
really
yeah.
90s fashion. What do you think of like the
It is.
90s tone?
I've always loved it, maybe because again, born in '91, so quote unquote in my mind, this is my era. So I think it's nice to see it now in HD and in 4K, right? It's just actually like let those colors pop.
Hmm.
Jubilee looks less quote unquote tacky. She didn't look tacky originally, but I just mean if you watch it
Yeah,
now, like she almost looks
definitely
like a
looks
little
better.
like weird. Whereas now she looks like okay, I get it. Yeah, that's nice,
Hmm.
punchy and visual, but not like silly. So I really like the styling. I think they did a good job portraying the times, but updating it for 2024.
She had a great moment. It was just visually a good moment when they go to the club and she starts dancing. I thought the animation was really well
She's
done.
like,
Right?
I was like, okay,
Doing
all right,
I was like,
girl.
okay, it looks good. Usually, when you see animated characters dancing, it looks weird because they can't
Yeah,
animate it quite well. But I think they did a good
yeah,
job of animating it here. Oh, also, I love the moments with
yeah.
Morph. Morph is a character they kind of tweaked a bit, but he's more like the
Uh-huh.
comic counterpart.
Yeah.
And I love Morph's relationship with Wolverine because he's always fucking with him. Like that moment where he dresses up as Jean, is like he's such a dick. I know what's wrong. Why? I'm Jean Grey, humble telepath extraordinaire, and I'm having the most beautiful baby in the world with the most boring man in the world. And oh, hello, you on the sidelines watching our exhausting perfection every day. I was just like,
But, but I think what was funny there is Wolverine didn't even like say he was wrong. He just made some comment like, "Yeah, because they're stupid." Like,
Yeah.
you're right. Like, Morph is this one person that Wolverine lets clown him, and it's actually nice to
Right,
see
right.
that. It's nice that there's a person where Wolverine is literally he doesn't take him seriously, and he actually is like, "Yeah, I do love Jane." So what? Like,
Yeah.
that's one thing I love about Wolverine. He's never been like, stop it, Morph." He's like,
Right,
"Yeah,
right.
yeah."
And I think this show is going to use Morph in an interesting way, as we've seen in this first two episodes. I think he's going to be the character to give us all the like X-Men cameos, because he just
Definitely.
changes like different characters. Like this
Yeah,
episode, he changes Xavier, Jean, Blob, Angel. Next episode, he has more transformations, and I'm curious to see if that's going to be an ongoing thing. Like every episode, we get cameos because of him.
I think he will. It's a
Yeah, that would
smart
be
way to
interesting.
do it, to be honest.
Right, right. And I think that's the end. That's what we have for episode one. Let's go into episode two. This is where, because episode one felt more like a reintroduction, right? We're just kind of setting
Hmm.
the scene. We're setting the stakes. This is what the atmosphere is like. And then episode
Yeah,
two takes it one step further. Even, I don't know if you noticed, the opening intro is slightly different from episode one, because this time we have Magneto in place of Professor X. Ah, you didn't
I
notice
did
that,
not
did you?
notice.
Yeah.
I missed
Because in the
something.
first episode, we still see Professor X in the intro, right? Is usual thing. But this time, it's Magneto in the same position, because he's now,
And
as
now,
that last episode ended, he is now the leader of the X-Men. And what I like about this episode, before we go into depth of it, is it does a great job of you understanding Magneto's point of view of things and what has led to him, but you also understand that Magneto low key knows that parts of Xavier is right. There's a moment where he talks
Mhm.
with Rogue, and he says one of the reasons why he created the helmet that blocks Magneto's telepathy. I mean Xavier's telepathy, is also because he would sense Xavier's good spirit, and he
Love.
didn't want that. He didn't want his love to affect him, and I love that. And then even still, as angry as Magneto is, even what happens later, we're going to discussion. He says never again, but at the end of the day, he still says, I'm going to try hard to give this thing to do this, continue Xavier's dream. So what do you think of Xavier giving everything to Magneto and the reaction to
Disclaimer: Magneto is my favorite character. I do not agree with his morals or killing, but he is the best. Thank you.
that?
Do I believe him? Is the question now. I don't know. I'm still skeptical. I don't know what that means. Maybe he did give it to him. It's possible. They've been very close friends from a long time ago. And I think if we're calling it 100, if he really did do it, Xavier knows that Magneto will actually enforce his ideal. I think he knows that deep down he knows his art, right? That's only if that's real. I don't know if I believe it yet, because like I said with X-Men, you just feel like there's always, always a rug about to be pulled out from under your feet. All right. Like I said, Magneto is my favorite, but I guess I felt like Cyclops too. Like, I mean, Cyclops would have been the easy and obvious choice. So why would Xavier do that and not even like, I don't know, leave a note for Cyclops, next to I don't know. This is how my brain was working. Like the real, every time you see Magneto, be on your toes because he's
Mhm.
probably, probably up to something. But on the other hand, like I said, being a Magneto fan, I think I hope this goes on for a while because it's nice to actually see him in this position, right? To see a Magneto who is now being restrained by Xavier's ideals, right? And I think that is the only human, or not human, the only individual in the world that could actually constrain Magneto's ideals. I think we can all probably agree, right? So probably the only person Magneto actually like respects abundantly, and like you said, loves to a certain degree. So I really like that the story element because again, look at how even I am like, well, is it true? Is it not? We're all thinking what the experts are thinking. I can't imagine waking up and then walking into the danger room and then you see Magneto, but it's like, wait, this is the real Magneto. Like this is we're not fighting. This is not my boss. Like my point is I feel like it's just a great thematic element and even like his portrayal across the whole episode. When they came, the U.S. The government came to get him, and
Yeah.
he was like, "If I succeed, will this prove it to you guys? Like, will this make you happy?" And we're like, "Yes." And he's like, "Fine." Like he's such a command. He's literally one of my favorite villains of life. He commands so much presence. Like you said, like you can feel his thought process. I may not agree with his killing, right? But I definitely just feel the weight of every decision he makes, and I feel like he's one of those people who, like, if he says something, he means it, unless he's lying. Which I that's a weird sentence, I know. My boy, like, he's not
Mhm.
lying about why he hates humans. He's not lying. Even when he was speaking to the in front of the judges of the appeal, like, he was like, no, no, I'll tell you why I do this and why you're all crazy too. Like, I'm not gonna be loud, like, begging. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't feel bad, but I'm just trying to do good. It's because of Xavier, not because I like you people. Remember
Yeah.
that. So it's just it's so great to see that, and yeah, I'm still skeptical, but in terms of just like a literary point for the story, I think it was an excellent choice by them just to make us all uneasy and also allow us to lean more into this Magneto and Rogue thing that not many people, I guess, knew
Mhm.
about in
Yeah.
Ultimate Worlds. Do you have any
Yes.
thoughts on that?
Yes. Well. First of all, I'll go back. This whole trial of Magneto, what this show has done a great job of in the original series, and I'm seeing happening here, is that they do a lot of direct adaptations of the comics themselves. Right? They'll tweak
Yes,
things here and
correct.
there, but a lot of the things are taken right from the comic pages. This whole trial of Magneto is almost very, very similar. The context is different,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it does happen. And even Magneto, Xavier giving Magneto the school is something that happens in the
Mm-hmm.
comics. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's one of those things where, and what I love, there's a line, in terms of distrust, when Cyclops says to Jean, "Read his mind," and she's like, "No," and then she's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Even if that's how he feels now, doesn't mean I'll know how he feels tomorrow or the
It
next
was
day
like
or next
every
week."
second you do it forever. Like, whoa, 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 whoa.
I loved how passionate Cyclops was.
Yeah,
Like,
same.
what? And then on
Okay.
top of that, I think two reasons why Xavier gives it to Eric. One, like you said, because Xavier knows how close they are, and he knows he's kind
Right.
of, it's almost like a dick move. It's like, I'm going to give you this weight that I know you're not going to say no
To
to.
keep you down. Yep. Yep.
I'm going to give it to you, but
Yep.
at the same time, I think he's aware, and this is part of the narrative that the storyline goes into, episode 1 and 2, is this transition of, Jean is having a baby, and Jean is having this conversation with Cyclops of, you know maybe we should leave this life. Maybe it's time for us to retire. That, they're one of the few, with Beast as well, the original members who are not there, who are still there. You know, because if people don't realize, the team that you see in the previous series, that's not the first team. That's the second team. We have storylines with the first team, which includes Iceman as well.
Bobby.
And and these kind of things are narratives that make you understand where Xavier was coming from. He probably felt like he understands that Scott's going to want to become a leader. Let me take that away from him, because he should have a
Never.
normal life. He should have a
Never.
regular life. But I love the trial of Magneto, because I think it does a good job of showing where Magneto is coming from. But also, Magneto kind of understands. I think part of why he says yes, I think he's beginning to understand why humans are also afraid of mutants. I think that's why he goes on a saving spree to save them in the beginning. We see things in the beginning where he saves people at Coney Island as well, and he wants to prove himself, not just to Charles but to everyone else, that he can do it. And even when we see the moment where Storm gets depowered, his frustration. Oh, I have to read the quote that he says, because it's fantastic. "Bigot, ingrates, sociopath worm, so small I could smite you with a step. There was a time I could smite you all for what you've done to Storm, but today I have saved you from your own. For an old friend has challenged me to remember this view of Earth, how vast it is versus how small we make it. Charles Xavier entrusted me with his dream, and it does not ask you to love or embrace my kind as your own, but merely to accept that this is a shared world with a common future, and that my kind, like yours, have the right to live in it. I'm trying to be better. Please do not make me let you down." Oof,
Well,
that gave me shivers.
I was literally here like, because I might have dropped them. I'm sorry. I don't know if that can that can
And
go
he has a
against me for
tear from
saying
his
that.
eye.
But like, yeah, like I was like, come on, what the depth of Magneto is why he's one of my favorite characters for like forever. You just, and once again another great portrayal. They almost never miss, even live action. They almost never miss
Hmm.
with Magneto. I
Hmm.
don't think they ever have actually.
Hmm. Because again, he's not just a villain for the sake of being a villain. Yes, he crosses the line, but it's one of those things where it's like, he's one of those villains where it's like, if you were in his position and had his life, would you be different?
Probably
You
not.
know,
Probably worse.
you
Maybe
know,
worse.
you probably
Maybe.
worse. The fact that he's showing this restraint right now,
Uh-huh.
he's showing so much restraint, ridiculous amounts of restraint, but at the
Uh-huh.
same time, remind you how much power he has by taking you up into the stratosphere.
It was
He's like,
just
I
so.
could, I could. Oof. I thought his whole trial. Even there's a moment where when the judges find out that the Friends of Humanity are coming after them as well, and he's like, "What did we do?" And he's like, "You gave a monster a trial. Now you are traitors to your kind. Oh, to play by the rules, and they still come for you." Oh, love that. Love
It was
that.
literally. It's actually playing right now, and it's honestly working just past that screen. Like the portrayal, his face I'm watching, it's just yeah. I feel like he's such a great he's a great teacher of reality. Let me put it like that, right? To everyone on both sides of just being like, what do you mean? How did this happen? You don't. I almost feel like it's again not we have this is not a political show, but very similar to just things that happen in America and mentioning political unrest and some people who broke into the Capitol or wherever
Mhm,
it was. Like it's just kind of a similar thing of like, listen, what do you mean? How did this come to be? If you're pushing a narrative, you're saying certain things naturally it's going to grow in people's minds and it's going to end up
mhm.
one day being like a volcano. So here you go. So yeah, top marks Magneto for having 0 kills this
It's funny,
episode.
right? Even I mean, even the part where like you said, the government came to arrest him, and they're like, "Oh, don't bother. Our weapons don't have any metal in them, whatever." And he's just like, "Okay, but your helicopters." She's like, "You should think twice." And he's like, "Me think twice?
Just like
What?
I can't
You
believe
better
you
think twice."
people. Me rewatching the old one, last week also showed me like I think you and I even discussed this offline, right? Like how deep X-Men actually is. Like when I
Hmm.
was younger, sure, I was more like I like Wolverine claws, and now you're like wait, what? Like, bill being passed, dealing with this, mutual registration. Okay, the Senator Kelly, but okay, are we talking about the government or is this the Sentinel program? Okay, who is this? All the meantime, let's let them talk about Sinister and Apocalypse. We're just waiting,
Hmm.
right? Like, this is just like they're
Hmm.
actually dealing with legislation and physical problems. Well, like it's such a great way to just show a myriad of problems, right? That they have
Hmm.
to deal with, where it's not just like again, honestly, ask me, I think they have it easier than Avengers and Co. Who is just like, yeah, you guys can exist, just go for
Yeah, yeah.
sign a Sokovia Accords, yeah, right. Whereas mutants are like being wrangled up and killed.
Which again leads me to the next point I want to just quickly discuss. You know, we touched on it in terms of Cyclops and Jean wanting to be are going to be parents, and okay, what's the next stage? What do we do next? We've had this life since we were younger. Where do you go to next? One of my favorite moments is when Jean and Storm have this conversation. You know, where Jean's worried that is it bad if I don't want my child to be born a mutant? You know, because she knows what's going to happen. Like this world's going to remind you of it all the time. What do you think of those moments of just reminding that being a mutant is being an other that most people don't like, even to the point we saw in last episode. You know, again, Roberto himself says, "I'm not like the bad ones you see on TV." So that tells you the political atmosphere. It's just still this negative view of mutants. What do you think of those moments?
I think it's interesting because, like you said, the media has demonized them so much that it's even discouraging existing mutants from wanting to remain mutant, which again has been a theme of X-Men since day one, even the movies. And Rogue throughout time is
Hmm.
always wondering if she can get rid of her powers, which is very understandable. You see that not everything is as glamorous as Jean Grey being able to, in, use Bluetooth to control people, right? Some people are actually having like a physical manifestations that aren't cute. They can't touch people. So it's always, I think it's always just nice to remember that aspect of it, just to see that, yeah, even if it's cool, it doesn't mean that somebody wants to be that cool. And then just on the flip side of that, that's why I was so hurt when Storm got shot. But it's funny because, like you said, she was talking to Jean. Jean was talking about her, and wanting her kid to have, and now Storm has lost her. So Storm is having to
Hmm.
deal with the like things she's discussing. So it's just that the what I call it the thematic connection between those two things. I think it's just great because you're really seeing Storm is like Beast. How long? Beast is like
Tell me.
what is
It's like,
that?
oh, sure.
I mean, maybe forever. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it comes back when you get to heaven. I don't know. But for this world, you're done. So
Yep.
again, it's just a very, very great way to keep us viewers remembering that, like, I don't think the X-Men had it easy at all. They couldn't just walk to the park and sit down and walk back home. Like, that wasn't part of their life. Their life was like be killed or hide away in Xavier's school, almost for like the duration of most of their lives. And I just
Mm-hmm.
love how, again, it's coming out in this 2024, where I feel like the world is battling with many different thoughts, religion, and genders, and stereotypes, and it's just giving us a new way, I think, to honestly help people reassess their biases a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just again, check yourself before you wreck yourself, because this
Mm-hmm.
is what things look like when they get extreme, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once again, clearly I love this show. Like I said, my only negative was that Storm lost the powers, which I know has happened before, whatever. But
Yeah.
still,
No. Again,
that's the only
this
negative I
goes.
have.
This goes back to again comic storyline where for different circumstances they were actually going after Rogue and Storm saves her.
Yeah.
Storm has lost the powers and she had the same kind of mohawk haircut and she goes to this
Yep.
narrative and I think they're going to do that. They're going to do this narrative that
Probably.
she kind of finds out more about herself. In the comic, she ends up becoming the
Yeah.
leader of the X-Men over Cyclops. I don't know if they're going
Mhm.
that direction, but maybe they could. But I want to touch upon what you just said in terms of showing the different sides of mutant, like being a mutant. Do you want the powers? Do you not want the powers? And I think they also showcase that through you know a character like Rogue. That's always been that case, right? Where yeah, she has powers, but she can't touch. We've seen the first episode where she wishes to be able to dance with someone, close to someone, and which again, this has been something in the comics, and some of the comics, various versions of the comics, and I don't think it was touched on in the original series, but she did work with the Brotherhood, uh, that Rogue and Magneto have a history and a
Yeah. Right.
chemistry, and we see
Right. Right.
teases of that even more so. The fact that because of his powers, he can negate her powers, so they can touch. So it's like that's what again. So this is someone that she can feel closer to, but she doesn't want to, but she has to. But she just pull and push that reminds her that this is what it would be like if you didn't have powers. And
Mhm.
I felt that so sad because then it cuts to the shot of Gambit seeing what, well, at least
She's
noticing
sad.
what happens, and then even him dropping the Queen of Hearts. That's so symbolic. But yeah, I just think I just kind of love how they showcase those
He's
differences in the different mutants. Again, you're a mutant, but you don't want your child to become a mutant.
Mhm.
Like what
Mhm.
does that mean? It's just like, how does that work? And then there's another mutant saying, no, it's great, being a mutant is great, it's the best thing that happened to me. And then that mutant loses their powers
Right.
instantly.
Right.
And I think it makes it harder. I think that's why the previous episode they gave us that moment of Omega threat detected,
Yeah.
because they wanted
Yeah.
to show us her at her epic, because they knew they were going to depower her, you bastards.
Yep. Yep. I actually hate them, but it worked. It worked because
it,
I
it,
was
it
pissed.
worked. It definitely worked. It definitely worked. The baby is born. I loved two moments with that. One, I loved how Wolverine got scared. He's like, "What? Is it apocalypse? No, the baby."
Yeah, that
And
was
I
so
love that
good.
moment because then it's it's a blink and you miss it moment. And I only noticed this on my second watching when he's driving in the streets like crazy. Jean is using her powers to save people and move them out of the way while going
Oh,
into labor.
oh,
You
I
know?
missed that. I thought she was having like a crazy like pregnancy
No,
outburst. Huh? No.
no, she's controlling it. She's saving people. Even one guy, she moves a guy out of the way and gives him back his drink nicely in his hand. Like she's
Well,
actually
I
saving
didn't know
people.
rewatch that.
Wow. And I thought that, wow, that's a great showcase of powers.
On
And
well, why she's the
he,
best.
right, right. And again, but this show reminds us again that mutants are still persecuted, like we mentioned, when the doctor would not deliver the baby. I was like, this motherfucker.
Rogue was like, please. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I love that. But yes, let's get into speculation at the very end. Again, are they going to end with like cliffhangers every episode? The first episode ends with Magneto showing up, and this episode ends up with Jean Grey showing up. Huh? What? Who is that? Quick
Fantastic.
speculations. What do you know, and what do you assume?
So I know because literally after the show, I'm actually ashamed. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know that I've just researched because I just found out that this has happened before. Of course, this has been done by
Yes, of course.
Sinister. Who else? But the
Mr.
worst,
Sinister.
absolute worst and most terrible villain who I sent David private messages about complaining. Yes, and
Can I tell you?
um,
Sorry to
no,
cut you off for a
please.
second. Sinister. is probably one of my favorite, just legit evil
It's
villains. Right?
it's
Like
just
in
a
terms of other
yeah.
villains that they have, you understand the nuance. Like Magneto, he's not evil, but things happen. But no, Sinister
There's
is
a
just straight. The name makes sense. He's just
there's
straight up
a
evil. There is no
the
redeeming qualities.
lipstick lad with his
Nothing
stupid
to him.
little teeth.
And I feel like we're gonna get more of Sinister with his narrative with Morph, because in the intro,
Right?
opening intro, you see like the hint of Sinister laughing in the shadows
Yes.
with in the Morph segment. But yeah, carry on. Yes. What do you
Yeah,
think?
so
Who do you think that Gene is?
I guess speculation or not, this is 100% setting up for Sinister up at 99%. Just because I don't remember her name, you can probably tell her name, but I definitely believe that this is a
Madeline
front.
Pryor.
There you go. That's the name, right? And I also did not know that Cable is Nathan Summers.
Yes.
I am yesterday years old, however that saying goes, in figuring that out. And once again, this is part of why I love the X-Men. Imagine I could be a fan since I was young, show, and not have known such an important detail. I blame myself, by the way, ladies. But the point is that the depth of the story is just so good, and I think I like that in these first two episodes we can see that they're pulling, like you said, kind of direct chunks from comics. It's almost like they're doing like little boxes of nostalgia presents for us all. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, you take this and then I take this and that's what we love about X-Men, right? It's their IP and the world is literally like somebody, I don't know, Legion could come and rewrite this, or the end of this entire season could be Legion and he's rewriting the world. My point is like there's just such a depth to what they can do with this IP, and I love that this show is leaning into everything. And I am 99% convinced it's Sinister because, like you said, the Morph connection, the Madeline connection, it all points to the same person. And don't get me wrong, Apocalypse is waiting somewhere, but this current storyline is definitely leaning towards Sinister. And almost like you said, I appreciate him as one of the villains that I do not like at all. Like I actually appreciate him as a villain. Like, the people in shows that when you see it, the heroes are like, oh my god, this is a 10 episode fight.
Yeah, yeah.
He's one of those, right? Like it's stress to them whenever he gets on the scene. Like, oh my god, why? So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, as you mentioned, he that narrative with Jean is a comic thing, and in the comics, he during, I think it was during the Phoenix narrative, he kidnaps. Oh no, Jean dies, but he has Jean DNA, and he kind of brings Jean back as a clone, and no one knows that she's a clone, and her and Cyclops have a baby together, and then of course the Phoenix Jean comes back, and it's the whole thing.
and you're
I
like,
think the
what?
character's still around. I think she's known as like. Goblin Queen or something like that. That's her character
Yeah,
in terms of her
that's
villain name now. But I'm curious where this is going to go. If it is Madeline Pryor, because it could be Madeline Pryor, but it could also could be Rachel Summers,
Mystique.
the future. Oh, Mystique. Or Rachel. They have a daughter from the future, alternate future, Rachel Summers, who's like older, and she kind of looks like Jean. It could be her, or this could be the real Jean, and the Jean that's pregnant with the baby, that's the clone, and that's the fake one. That's the other question: which one's the real one? Is it the one that just arrived? Because we do remember in the original series there was a time where Sinister had kidnapped Jean. And so which one did he? Which one escaped? Is it the one that escaped before? Did she just escape now? you know that's as far as our speculation will go, because I don't want to go too deep into it, because we could all be wrong and be doing something completely different. Either way, what we do know is that right now we perceive to see two genes. And you did mention about Nathan Charles Summers. Yes, and Nathan Summers, there's a connection to both. I won't go into it, but in the comics there is a connection to both Sinister and Apocalypse, to
Yes. So I said,
to Cable. There's a reason why he has a metal arm.
I'm actually happy it's a weekly show, which is rare to
Yes,
say it, right? Because it's nice to
yes.
have this, like, who is it? Who is that? Is that Gene? Is that not Gene? And like, reignite the community. So thank you, X-Men.
Two things before I close out. This week's morph transformations were Lady Deathstrike, Colossus, Psylocke, and Sabretooth. In fact, when we saw Lady Deathstrike, Colossus, and Psylocke show up, I thought, what? They just showed up? I'm like, oh, damn it,
Same.
morph.
No, yeah, Lady Deathstrike especially. It messed with me for a while. I was
Yeah,
like, wait, where did Deathstrike appear? Oh,
like, oh.
no.
and I forget, completely forget, we had to talk about this. The X-Cutioner. I think he was kind of badass until Magneto reminded him the I'm fucking
Yeah,
Magneto. He kind of fucked up the X-Men.
it
Like,
honestly, when he beat Cyclops, I was like, oh, this is why I don't like him. But
damn.
I'm being unfair just because clearly he was. I'll give him plot armor because
Yeah,
he whooped them bad. He whooped them bad.
no, I mean,
I
he
didn't- I didn't-
instantly took down. He collared Bishop straight away. Took them down. Boom,
like
boom. Like while giving you a lesson, like all that whining. I hate that damn whining. I was like, damn,
yeah,
just fucked
yeah.
him up.
Like
I was
it
like,
was
holy
actually
shit.
bad, but then it was just great because it also just gave it just when Magneto was talking and he was just
Yeah,
rotating behind him
yeah,
is
yeah.
one of the greatest scenes ever. Like it just
I love it.
Magneto put him in his place so hard
Right,
with that
right.
move. It was
Oh,
fantastic.
what I love about that, and we get a sense of that in the first episode when they're repurposing the Sentinel weapons to get better. When one of
Okay.
the Friends of Humanity says something along the lines of, "What, you didn't think we would evolve too?" And I love that because
That
it
was
showcases
great.
characters like the Executioner or the fact that humans are using high tech weapons. Of course, they would step it up. They know they're fighting mutants. They would train themselves better physically. They would get better tech. They would do whatever it takes to be able to combat with mutants. On that note,
So good.
thank you, Andrew.
It's been a pleasure as always. Can't wait to be back. Thank you, X-Men, once again.
My name's English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch review for episodes 1 and 2 of X-Men 97, currently airing weekly on Disney+. Tune in next week for next week's episode, and as always, Andrew,
Keep it nerdy.
peace.